Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's get started. What is your story when you fired someone or someone was fired because of you? Part 6. When I was 16, I worked at a sporting goods store and my boss detested me. He sent me home after my third shift because I was unwilling to work. I was in a technical area of the store, so part of my training was supposed to be 6 weeks of shadowing, but they put me on the floor by myself that shift so I couldn't assist customers. After that, he stopped scheduling me and sent me a letter threatening to fire me if I didn't call by a certain time. When I called, they said he was in the hospital and would speak with me on Monday. When I didn't hear back, I checked to see if my employee discount was still in effect, which meant I was still covered by insurance, so I went in to find out why I wasn't being scheduled. In summary, he verbally abused me, called my mother a horrible and disgusting mother for raising me, said that I was a disgrace, and claimed that I was stealing from the company by using my discount, to which I was entitled as an employee on payroll. He also claimed I was unmotivated in my work because I didn't ask for shifts from my boss. I sobbed as I ran outside and sent an email to HR using the company's contact us address right away. I learned that he was fired weeks later from an ex-coworker. I believe that some people supported the situation because he yelled at me while keeping his office door open. The most awkward thing happened 3 years later when I got a job at a different store where my former department manager, who didn't like me either, worked stock. She almost didn't get the job because she made fun of me and turned half the staff against me, but now that I'm in a higher position, people joke about her. Although severely demoted, not fired, I was the manager of a Domino's for a while, and before the new owner took over, my friend the general manager was trying to move up to assistant manager, but we couldn't finish the paperwork in time. The new owner walks in and appoints a driver from a different store with entirely different sales figures to be our new general manager. They were friends, I suppose, and he told me that his only management experience was working as a manager at Walmart for a month. He assigns me the position of supervisor over all of these stores, but he's never home, so he can't assist me in completing my training. When I bring up my training with the new general manager, he continually sidesteps the issue and puts it off. When I confront the owner about it, he sets ridiculous targets for me to meet and then tells me that I'm still not ready and that I should find another job, all the while the new general manager is piling on his work. I made an attempt to move to a different store, but the general manager told me straight that he wouldn't let go of the employee who handles all of this work, and that he would cut off myself and the other employees from the owner so that none of us could expose him for the horrible man that he truly is. At some point, I gave up and began coasting while I hunted for another job. I was managing the store one day when GM called. When I ask him why, he responds, "No reason," and hangs up. He then begins telling me that I need to start cleaning things that are not on the usual checklist. I choose not to give it much thought and to clean after doing our regular prep when we have free time. Not even 5 minutes later, I see a car pull up and I know he wanted me to clean because he chose not to tell me that an inspector was coming. GM then appears as though he has been there all morning as he bursts through the back door in uniform. I choose to act naive when it comes to the inspector and everything we were docked on. I would say things like, "That's how my manager trained me to do it," or "Wow, he never showed me that before," etc. Even though the GM crew was supposed to clean one of the refrigerators the previous night and he discovered mold in it, the inspector was surprisingly calm and even demonstrated to me how to perform certain tasks correctly. After that, he went to speak with GM alone. I can't recall the exact score we received, but he was demoted back to driver at a different store and we never heard from him again, supposedly because of how bad it was. Before he left, I did tell him that I would give him a hard punch to the jaw if I ever saw him in person again. Worked in a call center for a little over a year managing workers' comp patient cases. The manager oversaw a branch office in Arizona while the headquarters were in Pennsylvania. Despite being geographically distant, we were all able to access the same system and view each other's work. It was quite ruthless and considered to be normal to point out mistakes in other people's work. It was simple stuff. We would leave notes, attach certain documents to patient cases, etc. But if we made a mistake, we would let the supervisor know so that coaching or disciplinary action could be taken. I would find and report numerous mistakes made by this manager's team every day. However, I made a major error one day and sent it to my direct report. The following day, I received a message saying something like, "Oh, manager is actually out today, so could you handle this?" I lost it when I realized that fixing this would require an hour of my time and result in us being yelled at over the phone by our customers who don't like us anyway. Besides, it wasn't my mess to begin with. I sent my boss a lengthy email complaining that I was tired of having to clean up after this manager's team kept making the same mistakes even after I reported them. My boss and I had a meeting where she chastised me for not acting in a professional manner or whatever, and we also talked about what I had witnessed. I spelled it all out on the table. She never accepts responsibility, and we're the ones who always clean up the mess her team makes. 2 days later, we received an email sent to the entire department informing us that the manager had left the company. Everything that was sent in as a complaint was promptly placed in her trash folder after it seemed that they had made the decision to investigate. Never cared, never followed up. To be honest, she probably realized that the company was unsavory, but that doesn't mean I want to clean up your terrible mess. Nevertheless, I quit my job at the call center and found another one. I worked at a fast food restaurant before getting promoted to shift manager. Our general manager was extremely indolent. Although he was paid for 50 hours of work, he only put in about 30. He was not the kind of person who covered shifts or stayed late. Though his official schedule called for him to stay until 7 p.m., he would arrive every day at 10 a.m. to open and depart around 3 p.m. He gave me the training I needed to begin placing truck orders and doing inventory counts, which belonged to the assistant manager or general manager. After he taught me how to close payroll, I took over the night shift. People had been complaining for a long time that their checks were short, but he would always brush it off, claiming the computer was broken and the totals weren't correct because we had an outdated time clock that only printed out receipts. Nevertheless, I discovered that he was manipulating people's hours in the system when I began closing payroll. I would discover that everyone's times had been changed to reduce their hours by 15 to 30 minutes on nights when I knew we were really busy and hadn't finished closing until 30 to 45 minutes after closing time. And it happened almost every day. I began recording the times that the employees on my shift left, and I compared them to the times that he had altered on the back computer. Since I was the one who closed payroll, I would adjust the times back to what they should have been if I noticed anything that didn't seem right and knew it wasn't right. However, I could only make changes to what I knew. I was unable to alter the system for the nights I didn't work because I lacked documentation. Along with the assistant manager, I began verifying that the clock times of employees were correct in the systems by going over their schedules throughout the week. We also began gathering evidence of wage theft against the general manager. After several months, we eventually gathered enough evidence for the franchise owner to hear our complaints and launch an investigation. Our general manager had to step down after about a month. Do you have any wild and wacky HOA stories to share? Part 6. Typical, not mine, but I did have some input and received weekly updates on this. My friend purchased a condo a few years ago. Before moving in, he did some minor renovations and planned to repaint the balcony, but after reading his HOA paperwork, he discovered that it was all on them and decided not to touch it. A few months after moving in, he receives a notice that the color of his balcony railing is incorrect. He spent a few hours cleaning up after the renovation because he didn't paint it and didn't thoroughly clean the area, and the railing was looking a little white from construction dust. He apologized for not upholding standards and said he hadn't touched the balcony at all. He receives a second letter the following month, this one using harsher language and threatening fines. I was over there quite a bit. On the weekends, we would use his place as a morning fuel stop and starting point depending on which MTB trail we went. He asks me, "Do these balconies all look the same to you?" first thing in the morning. We leave in the early morning exactly the same way. After the ride, we naturally talk about the HOA's problems. When we got back, I took another look and noticed that, sure enough, the surrounding wall and his were darker in the strong light. I then asked if they had painted before you moved in. He thinks I'm a genius because I checked his move-in paperwork and discovered that, indeed, the HOA had updated some of his unit during the sale. He emphasized that, as well as the parts of the bylaw that said they were in charge of painting the outside, so they were accountable if it wasn't done correctly. Sent the letter, believing that was the end of it. Receives a very menacing demand letter the following month stating that he has 15 days to comply or else fees would be assessed and the lien policy would take effect. In essence, they file a lien at 90 days and begin collecting on it soon after. He's angry now, takes a day off work to attend the board meeting, which is held in the middle of the day, apparently, making it impossible for anyone to attend. He's one of about 3 people in a complex of about 150 to 200 units, excluding the board. Board tries to railroad him, just keeps saying that since it's the wrong color, he should repaint, otherwise they wouldn't have painted it incorrectly. At last, he manages to get the board member who reported him to clarify that indeed it was during their midday break from their story walk when they were conducting their inspection tour. He then shows him a few dozen pictures he took of all the condos in the area at various times of the day. Finally, as he continues to argue his point, he discovers something he missed. The color paint they had originally used was no longer available, so they had to switch to a new approved version. After that, they shut up. Oh man, the pleasures of associations for homeowners. I have some experience because I spent 20 years living in a community. 3 times when my car was parked right in front of my house, it was towed. The most annoying incident occurred when I returned from the hospital with my wife, who was giving birth, to get some clothes and other supplies for her stay, only to find that my car was gone. Association fees that are always changing. All of my bills are set up for automatic payment. I have to adjust my payments because they keep changing the amount, which I never remember to do, and I end up paying late fees and other penalties. Within a year, they made 3 changes. Individuals suing the organization. Because of the incompetence of the board members, we were forced to pay multiple fees, special assessments, and legal fees. I know what you're thinking. We shouldn't just elect new board members. It's an unpaid position. Nobody desires it. Many people approached us to join the board, but nobody was interested in joining save for a few prisoners who wished to attempt money scamming from the association. Associations suck. I reside in a pleasant middle-class neighborhood in the western United States, essentially just outside of a big city. Ultimately, it's a newer neighborhood, and from the incomplete cul-de-sacs across the street from me, I can tell that more homes are only now being constructed. There's a small shop and go, a bar, and a large lake in the center of it where people take part in recreational activities. I would say that those 3 factors are the only ones that set us apart from being a mere residential area. Now, it's obvious that we have an HOA because I would not be complaining. It's required to join said HOA, and I'm glad I did because there aren't any ongoing monthly dues, something I've never done before. That seemed a little odd to me, but I quickly discovered why it was configured that way. Our HOA's head is a completely insane individual. He'll fine you $10 for simply having your trash at a place. I'm not making this up. It's the silliest thing I've ever encountered. I've been fined $10 several times for alleged rule infractions. He's the kind of guy who, in order to make up for something, drives a massive lifted truck. He literally always has flip-flops on, even in the winter. He attempted to detain a real police officer after pulling them over for allegedly speeding once. He and the rest of his HOA buddies, who are all friends because they have a kid around the same age, hang out at the aforementioned bar literally every night, like it's some kind of biker club and not a discount neighborhood watch. I once decided to question their fining methods at a bi-monthly neighborhood meeting, and I was met with unwavering support from neighbors who weren't happy with it either. The head of the HOA and his friends faced massive discontent. At the peak of this storm, when everyone was voicing their discontent, someone suggested re-electing the head and his buddies. People immediately agreed. At that same meeting, we ousted them and elected a new board and a new head, me. I was pleasantly shocked. But the previous head and his buddies were so ashamed and shocked that they didn't even dare to resist. That's how one remark of mine at the meeting led to a coup in our HOA. If you want to watch the part 5, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.